This week, we get your thoughts on Donald Trump's acquittal in his impeachment trial. Also, does the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada need to be bilingual? I'm Glenn McGuinness, and this is Outburst.
Yes, I think he has to be bilingual because he'll miss out on a lot of votes.
If they're going to represent our country, I would say yes.
There's people of all origins in this country right now. We should certainly be able to speak two languages, I think, if we want to lead a federal party.
For their strategy, if the leader wants to appeal to Quebec voters, he's got to be able to understand their language, right?
As the race for leader of the Conservative Party of Canada moves forward, two prominent candidates, Erin O'Toole and Peter MacKay, both aspire to win. But many Canadians feel anyone vying for the job of Prime Minister of Canada must be fluent in both English and in French, an attribute neither candidate can claim. Having a fully bilingual leader could also increase your chances of winning in Quebec. So we sent our cameras out to ask Canadians if speaking English and French is a must. Our question: does the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada need to be bilingual?
Yes. I feel that they should be able to represent both aspects of Canada, and I think we've been in Canada long enough, French and English, that it's our norm. It's where we're going. It's where we've been.
Well, I think it's really important for the leader of any federal party, including the Conservative Party, to be bilingual. It's a bilingual country, and you know, even though the province I live in, Nova Scotia, is not a fully bilingual, I think even here there's more recognition now of the Francophone community. It's something that's become more important, not less important.
I think absolutely. I don't see why there'd be a different standard for the Conservative Party that there is on behalf of any other party.
Yes, because the country's bilingual. I would say yes, French and English, great if there's more than one language for the leader of the next Conservative Party to know, to be able to communicate with Canadians.
Yes, I think he has to be bilingual because he'll miss out on a lot of votes if he isn't.
And yourself?
Yes, I do, and I think it's a communications issue. He needs to communicate with both English and French people, he or she.
I think the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada should be bilingual for sure, given the fact that we live in a bilingual country, and you know, there's people of all origins in this country right now. We should certainly be able to speak two languages, I think, if we want to lead a federal party.
Yes, I agree. They have to be bilingual because both Canadians need to be representative between French and English.
I lived in Montreal, so even up there it's hit or miss, so it's all good. It's not important. As long as he can, you know, not be trued up.
I think they should be.
Yeah, I think the next leader of any party should be bilingual.
Yeah.
I would say so, yeah. I think that way they can better connect with, you know, representative people across the whole country, you know.
Maybe the ones in Quebec might be, but I don't know about the rest of Canada.
Okay. But to you?
Doesn't matter.
That's a good question. You know, he can have all of the policies. He still needs to represent our Francophone people. You know, maybe if he has a speaker, somebody there with him, he can't just be up there speaking English, in my opinion. You know, he should be speaking to all of the Canadian public, which includes our French population as well.
And that goes for any other candidate that would run for the leadership?
Yeah, I would say so.
Well, for me, the reason I sent my boys to the French, through the French school system, was because I believe that any child learning another language just opens up the mind.
And so you'd also like to see those?
So I'd like to see the Conservative leader.
Yes, I think it is important. You know, French and English are our country's languages, so absolutely. Do they have to be, you know, to what extent? I think at least if they can converse in French, I don't know if, you know, reasonably within the party so they can communicate between both English and French speaking, yes.
I don't think they need to be because English is the most prominent language throughout all of Canada. And in my opinion, like if it was to be bilingual, it should be the Indigenous language, which was first in Canada.
And what about you?
I agree.
Yeah? You don't think they need to speak English and French?
I think they should, personally. I'm not Canadian though, but I do believe that they should be. But however, like the Indigenous component should be a huge portion of that.
It would be a very great asset if they were, considering our country is supposedly officially bilingual.
But do they need to be, in your opinion, bilingual?
If they're going to represent our country, I would say yes.
Yes. Yes. Why? Because we are a country of French and English speaking Canadians, and I don't think he would represent French speaking Canadians well if he or she wasn't bilingual.
No.
Why?
As long as he can communicate in either English or French and get his message across, there's always services available to translate whatever language an individual may want to receive.
So you think it's not a big deal if it's only English?
Correct.
I think so. Just in general, being especially the town. The city is a bilingual city, so much French going on, but in general it is a bilingual country, I think. So, yeah.
And what about you?
I agree. I think that definitely they should be bilingual because this is a bilingual country. I just think it's important.
I think so. Yeah, because, if the leader wants to appeal, I mean, I'm never going to vote for Conservatives anyway, but I'm just for their strategy. If the leader wants to appeal to Quebec voters, he's got to be able to understand their language, right?
Need to be? Should be. I don't think that person would win if they aren't bilingual. So strategically, I think they should be. I don't have any skin in the game. I think even if the Prime Minister's not bilingual, that person has other staff, they could learn, but I don't think they'd win if they weren't.
Yes.
Why?
Because that's what's expected. We have two national languages in our country, and he should be bilingual.
Okay, madam?
I agree. I don't speak French, but I still agree. Yeah. Yes. Oui.
The numbers don't lie. Between January of 2016 and June of 2019, nearly 14,000 Canadians have died as a result of an opioid overdose. Thousands of other Canadians have also experienced non-fatal overdoses. This issue knows no borders, and it's a crisis worldwide. So what can we do here in Canada to bring those overdose fatalities down and give those affected their lives back? Our question: how should the federal government address Canada's opioid crisis?
Well, that's a pretty tough question. And, I think that maybe we should open our eyes to some more trials with other things such as CBD and things like that to try and take away our dependency on opioids as pain relief. A lot of our opioid addicts come from people who were prescribed these opioids for pain relief, and it's a real problem and it's destroying our communities, and something definitely needs to be done about it. And I think that the first step is taking a step away from kind of jumping right to opioids as a pain relief treatment.
We really need to clean up our streets and give it back to the taxpayers, including our parks. And we need to do this head on because it's not a right to be an addict. It's not a right. I'm fed up with it, actually.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty...
I'm an ex-addict.
Oh, okay. So
I'm coming up to 9.5 years clean.
Oh, good for you. Well, congratulations.
And if the system had been like it is now, I don't think I would be standing in front of you.
I mean, they can put in regulations, but people are going to break the law anyway. They're going to go to some, not registered site or whatever and get their stuff or buy it underground or sneak it in or something. So, I mean, I don't know if they bring in legislations, if it's going to do a whole lot of good anyway.
Maybe more education for kids so that we can stop the progression, because it's actually it's scary. It's hitting everyone. So.
I think putting in those injection centres where people can go to take the drugs is a start in the right direction. Do I think it's solved the issue? No. So I would say carry on with what they're doing, open up more of those centres, and I guess work out a way to try and take these substances off the street to, put a firm end to it instead of just a decline.
My father was a doctor, and well, I basically grew up with no kind of medication whatsoever. If we didn't feel well, it was just a little aspirin. But I don't know, it could be, doctors are oversubscribing. Yeah, it's a problem.
They should need more like safe injection sites around the site. People need like a cleaner supply so they're not actually getting it. You need to go after doctors that are over-prescribing it because they might be in the pharmaceutical company's pockets or whatever. But like a lot of those people are suffering. You need to not blame the victim, do everything. They didn't choose to get addicted to opiates and stuff, and they absolutely need some sort of government assistance, and they need ways to be safe. And unfortunately, they might need ways to get that medicine in perpetuity because of the way opiate addiction works.
Opening up more addiction centers, taking more actions for families to get involved, and seeing the mental health issues with it along with that too.
I personally think by legalizing and enabling safe access to safe supply and then providing better mental health supports, better housing that's affordable, better job security, and enabling people who are struggling with chronic pain or other conditions where they seek out those medications to have safe access to those medications and to have secure, happy, healthy, supported lives.
I think certainly a lot of this starts with eliminating things like not the discrimination, but I think what we see is we see a lot of people being ignored on the streets, and the kind of mental illness being ignored, and the real challenge of poverty and what leads to the issues is not particularly well addressed. It's pretty typical for our country generally, I think, and most Western nations, but I think that it certainly needs to start with acknowledging that it's more than just the fact that there's drugs on the street that's causing the problem. But beyond that, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to help out with that one.
I'm a healthcare worker, so I've been for 39 years. To say it's a crisis, I think it's always been there. It's been in our communities, it's been in our homes, it's been in our healthcare. I think it's a bigger problem than just one solution. I think it's a collaborative issue that needs to take place at the grassroots, where community care is given, with primary health care, and with community people that live there, live every day, and say, what's the issue, what contributes to the issue? And I think if we just come up with a solution and say that's the magic pill, it's not going to work. I think we need to go back to where people live every day and find out what's contributing to the issue. It's been there as long as I've been a nurse, and I think it'll continue unless we really start to work together.
Yeah, I think that certainly there's a perception with opioids that it's strictly a problem on the streets, but clearly it's much wider ranging than that.
People who are engaged in opioids, they know what the ins and outs are. It shouldn't come from the top, it should come from the bottom.
That's a tough one. I'm not entirely sure that anybody can address the opioid crisis. The drugs are coming in, who knows from where.
I think that having a plan, looking at the facts and having a plan, recognizing that it's a crisis, needing to deal with it, would all be a good place to start.
Well, obviously, they should remain illegal. We should not be prescribing opioid-type pain relief as readily as they are now. I think things like marijuana and other types of pain reliefs are just as effective and far less addictive than opioids.
So I go to school in North Bay, and their hospital there does a pretty good job of dealing with addictions. They have the hospital there, it's a big mental health focus. So everyone that gets admitted for addictions is usually very well taken care of. So I mean, it really depends on who comes in, who is seeking the help, as opposed to those who don't want help.
They should invest as much as they can in it. I'm not altogether sure. I know it's been in the news a lot more last year than it has this year, so I'm not sure how it's doing currently. I think they can always invest more in it.
Listen to the scientists and the professionals who are dealing with it. So you'd go to a shelter and find out from the people who it's their job to deal with this and get advice from them. I'm not one of those people.
I never taken drugs in my life.
I don't know anything about the opioid crisis. I feel sorry for the kids that have it, and I mean, I think probably we should have more outreach programs, more things publicly available, rather than sticking our head in the sand. But I'm not qualified to answer that, really.
Who was the first Canadian-born Governor General? Vincent Massey, George Vanier, Romeo LeBlanc. Massey, Vanier, LeBlanc.
Massey.
Massey.
Vanier?
Romeo LeBlanc.
George Vanier? It's my guess. Massey?
It's Massey.
Oh, yes.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Born in Toronto in 1887, Vincent Massey was the first Canadian-born person to be appointed Governor General. Massey was the 18th person to hold the title and was made Governor General in 1952 by Prime Minister Louis Saint Laurent. Before becoming Governor General, Massey was president of the family company Massey Harris, a philanthropist, and a minister without portfolio in Prime Minister William Lyon Mackenzie King's cabinet. Massey was also the first Canadian envoy to the United States and held a number of diplomatic roles before he returned to Canada in 1948. Following his term as Governor General, Massey returned to his philanthropy work until his death in 1967.
As you may know by now, President Donald Trump has been acquitted in his impeachment trial, ending a bid to remove him from power. The Republican-dominated Senate voted to acquit him on charges of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress arising from his dealings with Ukraine. While many people were shocked, many people were also not particularly surprised it turned out this way. So we took to the streets to get a Canadian perspective on this issue. Our question:
What are your thoughts on Donald Trump's acquittal in his impeachment trial?
I think Donald Trump's acquittal is going to put us in for an even wilder ride than we've already been down as northern neighbors.
Well, I mean, I think we all saw sort of the Trump acquittal coming. I don't think it was any surprise given how the Senate was lined up. And the fact is, it remains to be seen whether it has an effect, either positive or negative, in the upcoming election. So for me, the jury is out as to what's actually been accomplished or not been accomplished.
I think Donald Trump's acquittal is a shame. I think he should not be a political leader in our world. And I fear for all those who follow him in the U.S. and beyond, because he has lowered the bar so much.
Well, I'm not particularly surprised that Donald Trump was acquitted of the impeachment charges. I think it's just more of the same ridiculousness that I come to expect coming out of American politics right now.
I assumed that was going to happen because, the Senate, everyone was in his pocket. The way American politics works is it's very adversarial, and there's no real, they don't work together like parties do. Canada, we don't do it either, but we work a bit better than they do in the States. It's less adversarial. But there's other countries in the world where coalitions are a totally normal thing, and government realizes they need to work together. But I wasn't surprised in the least that that's what happened. I knew from the get-go he wasn't going to get ousted. But it's still a blemish.
I'm glad he was acquitted, and I think the impeachment was again a travesty. I think it was a big waste of money, and if they put that much effort into trying to help him govern instead of criticizing and standing against him, I think they could get a lot more done.
I think that we're going to be looking back at that picture of Nancy Pelosi ripping up his State of the Union address. I think we're going to be looking back at that in our history books and textbooks and stuff, and I'm curious to see what goes on with this because, I really had hope that maybe something would change, but I guess times show.
But I must say my mother was, she's long passed away, but she was a very proud American. But I don't think so today if she was still alive. No, it's just, it's sad what's going on.
I don't really have strong thoughts on it. I think he was, he's in such a position of power that no one can touch him really. So whatever he was, whatever allegations were brought against him, they're always going to get sort of swatted away. So I guess my opinion is it was no surprise to me.
He should have been impeached. And the reason I say that is because the people that are backing him up and agreeing with him is only to spite the other people, not for anything that Trump has done. I don't think he should be president.
What a joke, absolute joke. For the first time ever, the Senate hasn't allowed any evidence to be presented. Yeah, so it's a joke.
I think the whole thing's a farce. I don't know how else to put it. It's just a train wreck to watch and get amused by, but unfortunately, you wonder, it's someone manipulating a system.
Madam.
I think he did wrong. I think he shouldn't have been acquitted, and I think it just adds to his arsenal of being a huge head and thinking he's going to win the next election because he's got that acquittal in his tool belt now.
Honestly, I am kind of shocked. I feel like it's because the Senate just doesn't want to lose their jobs, because people really just want to protect Trump, but I don't necessarily understand why he's been doing illegal things, so it's just not okay with me.
Of course it was going to happen. I mean, the system is so corrupt over there, it's a joke. I mean, if anybody outside of America saw that coming a mile away, it was like, if I was a betting man, I would have put $20 on him being acquitted immediately. And then the fact that, what's his name, Mitch McConnell and the other stooges, they're just like, oh, we're not going to use witnesses, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. Then what's the point of a trial, It was a joke. And him being impeached, or not impeached, acquitted, I saw it like everybody saw it coming.
Here in Canada, there have been confirmed cases of COVID-19, also known as the coronavirus, in Ontario and BC. Cities like Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal remain on high alert. Foreign nationals have been removed from Wuhan, China, but Canada has been criticized for taking too long in its own rescue efforts. Federal Health Minister Patty Hajdu admitted her government had a slow start getting Canadians back home from China. But the federal government also says the cases within Canada remain in isolation, and everything is being done to protect the public. So we took this matter to you. Our question: has Canada's response to the coronavirus outbreak been satisfactory?
Not in my opinion, no. I think they could have got them out faster.
Yeah, why do you say that?
Well, compared to other countries, they could have. But I think it probably has to do with the fact that Canada doesn't have a very good relationship with China right now.
I actually think we learned a lot from the SARS outbreak a long time ago, and I think that they've been very prepared from what they've heard, and we haven't had a huge outbreak here in Canada. So I feel bad for the people on that cruise ship.
I think it could have been a little bit more prompt, a few days earlier than what's happening. Getting those people off the ship, could have happened earlier. And the same in Wuhan.
You don't think we got them out of Wuhan fast enough?
No. Could have been 4, 5, 6 days earlier.
It has been.
Why?
Why? Because we're getting them over slowly. It takes a while for us to understand what's going on, and they're quarantined where they were, so I think that was satisfactory. So fine, we're good enough to bring them home.
Time will tell, right? There's apparently a time period where no symptoms are displayed, which can make it a little bit scary. But I think that the Canadian government is taking good steps to prevent our country from getting this outbreak, and I'm happy with that. I have no complaints about that, I guess.
They were slow, I think, to respond, at least getting people out of China, but they have now done it. I hope that the 2-week quarantine is the actual adequate amount, because I don't think anyone knows. And for the people sitting on those cruise ships, what is 2 weeks now? They're still getting cases. So does the 2-week, do they have to go another 2 weeks? Do we really know the answers? I don't think so. We've brought the people back to Trenton to the base, and they're going to do their quarantine. I hope that everyone's okay, but if we get a positive within that group, do we still let the people out at 2? I don't think that's the Canadian government. I think we have to follow the World Health Organization, and they're still trying to figure it all out. So,
you know, Canadian border services compared to other places in the world are very strict, in my experience, and very thorough with letting people come in and people go. So I guess with that in mind, I would like to think that they're doing a good job of, you know, containing the virus to the parts of the world, you know, where the outbreaks have been and stopping it from coming in.
I think it's been very good. I think I was around during the SARS. I've worked in East Africa. I've done work in the UAE. I'm very much up on the papers that are put out by World Health Organization. And I think that we have, some people would criticize and say it's overdone. Some would always say it's underdone. But I think it comes down to this. People are prepared. So I think what we're going to see is a very mild flu season because people are washing their hands. They're taking caution. So the thing that causes more death, which is just influenza, and people refuse to get vaccine for, now it's high. People are on high alert. So I think they're doing all the right things. So I think they should be healthy all the way around.
People are doing the best they can, I think, with what they know, and there are a lot of things that aren't known. I think we have to keep anti-Chinese racism in check.
I think it has.
I do too. I think they've done as much as they were able to do in the time period they were able to do it.
Yeah, I think Canada has responded fairly well to the coronavirus outbreak and the, you know, risks and dangers that are associated with it, which, you know, for us right now, I'm convinced it's not any more risky than perhaps the 2 strains of influenza that are going through the country right now. So I think it's been made clear, but it hasn't been blown out of proportion, I think, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I think so, because I mean, a lot of it, I think it's media hype. SARS petered out on its own through natural immunity. Lots of people are still dying of influenza, just, you know, comparatively and everything. So people just get kind of scared because it's China. There's some xenophobia involved and stuff, and Canada shouldn't play up to the xenophobia that some people have.
I think the response to the outbreak's been satisfactory, but I would like to see a lot more money into epidemic research and a lot more money supporting training and response from our responders in hospitals.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on the Cable Public Affairs channel. I'm Glenn McGuinness. If you have any comments or questions about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. It's your turn to speak up, and we're listening.